your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it's really a pleasure to have you with us once again as we talk about, we're going into the subject of healing. There are several subjects I enjoy more than anything else. This is one of them because there are so many different modalities. And we're going to talk today. I tell you what, this is like International Day for me because I conducted an interview recently with a gentleman down in Chile. Well, we're going to go a little further north in South America to Brazil. And Efu Nyaki, I want to thank you so much for being with us here on the program. It's really a pleasure to not only meet you, but to talk with you about the modality that you have.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm actually thrilled and I'm very happy to be talking to you, to the public, to your public and more and beyond. Tell about healing trauma.
And it seems as though, and of course, I'm sure you've heard the news from January of this year, 2025, the trauma that many thousands went through in Los Angeles, California, with the wildfires that burned down thousands of homes. That's a number I've never heard before. I've heard 1 or 2 structures, 3 or 4 or 5 houses, 20 or 30. I mean, I've lived in Santa Barbara, and we've had some pretty horrific wildfires that went across the front of the what they call the front country between the beach and the mountain, and it took out a number of homes, but thousands. Oh my heavens! And then you lose everything.
Yeah.
And then there are people who are experiencing trauma from a lot of other, we'll say a lot of other sources, in terms of sometimes it's not a natural disaster. Sometimes it's a certain event that takes place. And for some, it's certain things that are happening that didn't go the way you wanted them to. And so we start experiencing trauma in that way, right?
Right. Yeah, that's one way and one part of it. But the biggest traumas actually have come from the family, from developmental trauma, from attachment trauma, how we relate with our parents, with our siblings, how we relate with our ancestors. Those traumas come from that area too. And of course, then you have other layers of we call them natural disasters like the fire and earthquakes and all of that. Those are natural disasters. And they come and they actually coupled with the traumas that come from the family relational and all of that. Yeah, so I mean, there's so much areas of trauma. I call them categories of traumas, that we have been working with.
How did you get started in this? Is this an outgrowth from the traumas that you went through and you said, I've got to get through this? And then once you did, you said, and I got to help other people do the same?
Uh, not necessarily. I mean, I got in because I'm a missionary and I actually was thinking of helping others. I was born and raised in Tanzania. Then I came to Brazil and then I became a Brazilian. So I'm here. But as a missionary, I arrived here in order to help, especially women and children who have suffered so much traumas in their lives. And
Hmm.
of course, as I'm helping others, I also benefit for myself. Because as I sit with others, whether it's a big group or small group or individual, they touch so much into my own life. As I'm talking to them and helping them, I go, oh, that is for me too. Oh, that reminds me of my own life here and there. So it's something so mutual as I work with them. Yeah.
So you're sort of, in a matter of speaking, kindred spirits of sorts because you've had something similar happen. And a lot of times that really goes a long way, doesn't it? To when someone knows that, oh, this person's been down the same similar, or I should say, a similar path as
Yeah.
I have, and maybe they can help. Maybe they can help me to get back on my path or maybe get on my path and find my life's purpose.
Right, right. Yes, yes, yeah. That it goes like that, yeah. And I usually begin with people and their own needs, but then of course while we are together with them, then I also tap into my own life somehow. And I tell them, I say, that happens to me too. So it's nice when you are talking to people or you're helping them and you give the examples of your own life because you're showing how much human you are. And they feel very comfortable with things like that.
Hmm. The
Yeah.
book, by the way, folks, is entitled Healing Trauma Through Family Constellations and Somatic Experiencing. It is Ancestral Wisdom from and is this the Snail Clan of Tanzania?
Yes, 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 yes.
Healing Arts Press published this book back in November of 2023. What is what is this concept you make reference to through family? What is family constellation? We'll start there.
Yeah. Family constellation, and I call it system therapy because it's a systemic therapy. It's a method of healing trauma, and especially the ancestral trauma, which we call transgenerational trauma, where we actually help people to get in touch with the energy of their ancestors. And as we get in touch with our energy of our ancestors, we look at what we have from these ancestors that has been a life-giving for us, and what do we carry that has been conflicts that the ancestors went through, whether it was war or famine or hunger or attacks, or disease, we carry it in our DNA. So sometimes it keep repeating because we are not really aware of it. And it keeps going over and over again. And for me, I came to understand when I studied this, I came to understand that the more I become aware of the traumas that my ancestors went through, it's the more I am able to actually select what do I carry from my parents and my ancestors forward, and what do I give back to them?
There's now, this may not apply, but it came to mind. There's
Yeah.
a biblical passage, I think it's in the Old Testament, that and this is referring to the sins of the father are passed on to the sons to 7 generations.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. It says like that. And
Yeah,
I think that it's not only 7 generation, it keeps going on. I guess whoever wrote that in the Bible, they were very much correct, even though those days they didn't do any scientific
right.
understanding. Because nowadays they are proving scientifically that what our ancestors go through, it is actually passed on through our DNA. Yeah. And so it can be conscious and unconscious altogether. And therefore we suffer something that we are not aware of. But when we become aware of it through these methods, then we can actually let go of that what is no longer serving us. Yeah, and
That,
carry on their strength.
that is a common phrase, that which is not serving us.
Yes.
I myself, with my upbringing, I was born and raised into Catholicism in the Western Rite. And I learned an awful lot through that process. And of course, when I married my first wife, I was introduced to the Byzantine Rite, the Eastern Rite of the Catholic Church, which was, again, another wonderful experience. And I still remember to this day, my parents sent us as a family, the six of us. We went to Catholic school. Now, I myself only went to kindergarten and first grade, and then they shifted us all over to public school. But I still remember an experience when I was out on the playing field at the Catholic school, which was adjacent to the church we went to. And I was getting a little bit of harassment from some of the students. So I went running to the nuns. It was fascinating because one of the nuns was very compassionate, very understanding, but not the other one. She was kind of like, put your big boy pants on, toughen up, and just, stop whining and crying and so forth. Now, I remember that only because of what you've been talking about. And it's not like that's held me back for any means, but it's just a memory inside, because I consider myself pretty accomplished now here at 65 years of age. Are there certain memories people carry in terms of those, because that could be labeled as a traumatic experience?
Yes.
But not all traumas necessarily affect us in such a way that it stops us from progressing as a person and growing and evolving and so forth, correct?
Correct. Because actually the trauma is going to affect you according to how you responded to it. Yeah. So when you are, however, the other kids started kind of messing with you, and then you ran to the nuns. Now, if you responded to it as, oh, poor me, this is too much. If it felt it was too much, and you were such a victim, and you couldn't move, and it was too much for you, that will affect you. Yeah. So because trauma is that what is overwhelming. Yeah. Our response was like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I cannot deal with it. So when I say it's too much, I cannot deal with it, what do I do? What do I do? I collapse. Yeah. I collapse and I just kind of stay there. So when I collapse, it means that I carry the energy, frozen energy in my system, which actually is going to stay there for years. And this can be passed on actually to another generation. And so I will be so scared when I see other kids. Everything I see, it reminds me of that kind of trauma. I could even have a stigma. If I think of going to school, I start getting panic attack. Yeah.
Oh.
Using your same example. Yeah, I start getting panic attack because I know other kids are going to attack me. Then you have children, and then you're taking them to school, and they cry and they don't want to go to school. And you're like, what happened? Nobody affected them, but they carry some genes from you who have that fear. And that's what they have. But they don't know, they are not aware of it. Yeah, that's how it happened.
My reaction to the bullying and so forth was, yeah, there were a lot of days when I really didn't want to go to school. I went, but it wasn't like, Mom, I don't want to go. I never got to that place where I would claim that I was sick, that nature. And it's funny too, because in my 20s, early 20s, I was sitting down with my parents at the dinner table. I was visiting at the time because I had moved out. And we were talking about all of this. And the one thing that they said to me, which I thought was interesting, And I did appreciate it. We wish we could have protected you better.
Mm.
First thought was the only way you could have done with that was to follow me around in school, which would have made it a whole lot worse.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Hear that from them that they knew that this
Mhm.
was going on, but there really wasn't anything they could do about it. I mean, what
No,
can you do? You take
no,
a kid out of school and you homeschool them. Well, they both worked.
no, no, nothing they could have done because you meant to, that's why there's another phrase, I think it is from Peter Levine, who is the founder of this method of healing trauma through somatic experiencing.
Mhm.
And he says that, well, trauma actually is not what happened to us. It's actually trauma is how our body responded to that event. And this will never be a sentence of life.
Mhm.
It will heal. And when this trauma heal, our nervous system expand. And then our spiritual growth comes in because we begin to see something better. Like our nervous system become bigger and it become actually how the word I can use that we use a lot in healing trauma, it's resilience. So my nervous system become resilient because I go through that trauma. But it become resilient though once I'm able to find a support and heal it. So when your parents say, we wish we could have supported you better, then you actually feel good because you feel like somebody care. And
Exactly.
you say, okay, yeah, I actually passed it. And you start feeling like a hero. How good that I managed it and I didn't actually cower down and all of that. So when we heal trauma, actually, it's almost like we are bringing out this spiritual part of our life and we become more resilient and we are stronger and we can help other people better.
This is to me, it's fascinating to go back and
Mhm.
things. I mean, I've been through different forms of therapy, whether it's laying on the couch kind of therapy. I've been through personal growth programs. I mean, I've read I don't know how many books over the years that some of them dealing with this, and I have to say that I think this is where my father's comments to me over the years, up until his passing, um, really did touch me quite deeply. And that was that he was probably since my 20s was always complimentary about what I have accomplished in my life. I never really think about it in those kinds of terms,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
it was not. It is so nice to hear. We're talking with Efu Nyaki. She has a book out. We want you to get a copy of it. It is Healing Trauma Through Family, Constellations, and Somatic Experiences. We're going to find out more about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is really a pleasure. I love conversations that I have with folks from around the world. And in this case, instead of going around, let's say I've had interviews with people from Ireland and Italy and India. But on this particular day, I've gone south of the equator to the southern hemisphere, to Chile, and now to Brazil to talk with my very special guest, Efu Nyaki, and her book is entitled Healing Trauma Through Family Constellations and Somatic Experiences. So let's jump into that one. What is somatic in terms of this process that you have created, somatic experiences?
Yeah. So somatic experiencing is the also methodology that we use for healing trauma. And this method, it's called a method of self-regulation. Yeah. We believe that bodies have a capacity to heal themselves because when you look at the very simple science, yeah, our nervous system, it's always like when you talk about sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. You know, like we activate and then we rest. We activate and then we rest. Well, if we could do that just in a simple like that, like animals do very easily, it will be very nice. But because of our cortical brain, that says Peter Levine, who is the founder of this method, you know, we human being, our cortical brain control us. So when we are doing something like you were working right there, you're kind of busy, you have to stop. But your cortical brain said, no, no, you cannot stop. You have to finish this. How about this? How about this? And then what is happening? Your sympathetic nervous system is activating and going up high, to the fact that when you actually want to rest, you cannot even rest. Your mind keep going. And so this is what creates stress in our nervous system. Yeah. And so somatic experiencing is very good for this, to help us to release these energies of trauma that are stuck in our nervous system. And we are able to just sit with the person and bring them, create a safe place, because they need to have safety. You know, in trauma, what is lacking is loving person being there with you, and maybe the support that they can give you. Now, if that is missing, then we are traumatized. So to heal this trauma through somatic experiencing, we bring this. Sit there with the person with a loving presence and care and compassionate. We don't do it. We just sit there with it. And when the person feels loved and support, their nervous system actually begin to release the traumatic energy. And then they heal and even go beyond healing, because they feel so good and they come up with new meanings of why even this trauma happened to them. So that's somatic.
I find it all fascinating from especially from the standpoint of someone who has been born and raised in a totally different part of the world. And why that's so intriguing to me is because in this country, I hear a lot of times, including from my brother, younger brother, that this is the greatest country in the world. And I sit there going, now with my brother, the answer to the question is yes. The question, though, is, have you ever lived anywhere else on the planet? Well, he has, because he worked for Disney when they were building all of these different amusement centers in different parts, specifically in the Northern Hemisphere, in France and in China, and even in the States and the different places. So he can come from a place of firsthand experience, even though it wasn't necessarily long, like years and years and years. Over the years, he spent a long period of time working there, and he associated with those people and had to deal with the rules and regulations, the policies, and so on and so forth. The most I can claim, I've spent two 2-week vacations in Ireland. Okay. So yes, I love Ireland, would love to live there. Okay. And I love, the thing I love the most is the people. But I don't have an experience of other parts of the world and how they have lived. Maybe you can help me to understand this, because some of the images I have seen specifically of Africa, and in your case, you know, you grew up. I love this you were raised on the slopes of Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
Which is supposedly a famous mountain that people like to race up and down to build up their stamina for maybe marathons elsewhere in the world. But the thing that has intrigued me about the images that I have seen over the years on television and different videos and so forth on demand, a lot of times when I see specifically children, but also adults, in what looks like a very impoverished area, and I look even at you and the clothing that you are wearing, the dress or the top, and then of course, what is the headdress referred to as?
What, the top, you mean?
Is there
Yeah, it's called, no, it's a special, it's just called the top, or it's called Kilemba, you know. Yeah, Kilemba.
the thing that always intrigued me was how bright and vibrant the colors were.
Mhm.
And I have to wonder sometimes if we have it's because color and sometimes what we wear. I have a Vedic astrologer who tells me that I need to wear bright colors. Now, of course, today I'm wearing brown, but that's okay. I have other things that I wear, but it makes you feel different.
Mhm.
They say the clothes make the man, or and in the case of a woman, they make the woman, and you feel a certain way depending upon what you're wearing, right?
Right, yeah, right. Nice.
About an environment like in Africa, and I would never ever use the derogatory commentary that I hear in this country about different parts of the other parts of the world, including Africa, which is actually, I think, very disrespectful.
Mhm.
But I'm just curious from your standpoint, growing up there on the slopes of Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, East Africa, um, was your lifestyle let me ask you the question this way. What was your lifestyle? In this country, we have lower, middle, and upper class, and I grew up in what would be considered more middle class. What about you?
Yeah, so we didn't have this middle class, upper class. We just had a life. We lived in the village, in a village, and you have a farm, you have trees, and you have plants, and you have everything. So we had food. We had everything we needed, you know? So with that, we never heard of a word poverty.
Ah,
Never. The word poverty I came to learn in the US when I came to the US.
ah.
But I've never heard of the word poverty.
You
Yeah.
know, what's really strange is the way people talk about other parts of the world that they have never been to.
Yes, exactly.
They all,
So, and I've never had hunger. I've never gone to bed hungry. We
Mhm.
always have enough food. So we planted, yeah, in the village. We had plenty of bananas, banana trees, coffee trees, beans, sweet potatoes, everything we needed, we had.
Mm,
So when I came to the US and I hear that Africa is poor, I was like, well, I don't understand that, the word poor,
yeah,
because that's not was our own reality there. And we shared what we had with other people. If the people were in the area where they had droughts that year and they don't have enough, we shared with them.
yeah,
Yeah. And so we did, and until now we go there, we found people who live in a very small hut, thatch hut, with grass hut, but they're not poor.
hmm
This whole question of poverty, it comes from the West world.
yeah.
Yeah, Western world. Yeah.
What I
People feel so rich from what they have around them.
yeah, yeah, it's incredible. Efu, Efu
Yeah.
Nyaki, she's my guest here on the program, and you folks are listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. This is Tell Me Your Story, and we are having a fascinating conversation. At least I think it's fascinating. I hope that you do too, as we talk with Efu Nyaki. Again, the title of the book is Healing Trauma Through Family Constellations and Somatic Experiences. There is a subtitle of Ancient Wisdom from the Snail Clan of Tanzania. And I like how you phrase it in reference to tribal wisdom. Does tribal wisdom is it something that is part of all of our lives, regardless of where we were raised? It's just finding the tribe that we belong to, and maybe it is just. I mean, my family was a family of 8, so there's quite a tribe right there. But does it exist pretty much all around the world? It just you got to find your tribe.
Well, tribal, when we talk in Tanzania, is at least, and here in Brazil too, when we talk about the tribal people, these are the indigenous people. You have
Okay.
the indigenous people, And they are divided into different tribes, different clans. Yeah. And therefore, this is the energy that comes from the ancient people. And so you too, you will have tribe when you look at your ancestors. Even if you come from Ireland or you came from Germany,
Mhm.
you will have a tribe in your own land there for many years ago, before the developmental stuff came up. Those who were there, you call them tribal people because they were there early in the ancient time. I know, especially when I talk about the Irish people, like they have a Gaelic, they have all this. That's really tribal people because they come from so much background. So each one of us has from the background of where we come from. But it is more, we are referring more to the tribal people, a group of people, a group of family that come together as a community, and they have their ancestors and they have their rituals, how they live their lives and learn together the wisdom of life. So
Hmm.
that's what I call tribal people.
Well, I know in some cultures here in the States, we do have, of course, our Native American tribes.
Yeah,
They have, I had an opportunity to interview a gentleman who is very close to and associated with his tribe, which is the Shumash Indian tribe here on the Central Coast.
yeah.
And they have their medicine men and women. If you have within your experience, I'm trying to remember the name of these structures that a sweat lodge where you go in and you have these experiences within this place that it becomes extremely hot. Sometimes even hotter than Phoenix gets in the summertime. And you also have others who train you in different things in that regard. So when we start talking about these different individuals who have a particular role in our community, you want to go to them for that wisdom. I mean, when I was challenged with some issues within my first marriage, the elders that I went to were my parents because they had the experience. They'd had, I don't know, at that time, I can't remember if it was 20 or 30 or maybe 40 years of married experience. And
Mhm.
well, why not go to the people who've lived it, who have worked through it?
Right.
That kind of what we're talking about too, in that when you're looking for that tribal wisdom,
Yes.
you want to go to the people uh, who are there to they're there to help you. They're not there to control you or anything of that nature. They're there to help.
And they have wisdom. They have gone through it, as you said. So that's your parents, your father, mother, and maybe your grandparents. They are tribal people. And they have wisdom because they have gone through it. And we treasure their wisdom,
Mhm.
and we honor, we reverence their wisdom,
Right.
and we learn from them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Mm.
you had that in your life as you were growing up there in Tanzania, correct?
Yes, yes, of course I learned. I know so much of healing, herbal medicines, stories of healing, about healing from my grandparents, because that's how I grew up. You learn, and we learned not from the books, really. We learned by observing how they did stuff, how they plant, how they harvest, how they use that medicine and that medicine for their own healing. Yeah, they call you, say, I have a belly ache, after I ate such a food. They say, come over here. They show you a leaf. They say, pick up 2 or 3 of them and then chew it this way, drink with water, and you should be okay. And there you are, you get okay. So that's how they taught us.
Mm.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of storytelling of what had happened before in their lives. But they tell the stories not to, I have one story I explained here in the book, but not to scare you. But
Mhm.
they tell a story in a way that not to even traumatize you, even though the story might have some traumatic parts to it, but they tell it in a way that you actually feel healed apart from the traumatic experiences. So that's how they learn how to teach. What I'm doing today, healing trauma, my ancestors actually knew how to do some of this without having to read anything from any book. And they learned it just naturally, how they live together through the wisdom of living life as is.
You know, that is an area we go into almost every program because we talk about our intuition. I
Mhm.
use the term still small voice. I
Mhm.
refer to that still small voice as my friend. Others,
Mhm.
depending upon their philosophical bent, will say, oh, that's the Holy Spirit. Or in different philosophies, they're going to call it something else.
Mhm.
It sounds to me like that is very important that we get in touch with that because that's where the greatest wisdom resides. Don't want to negate the wisdom of others that we can tap into.
Mhm.
It seems to me like the wisdom from within, from that higher place,
Yeah.
is greater. Talk to us about that in terms of how you help people work through these traumas.
Mhm. Yeah. So for me, I believe that the wisdom comes from the lived experience. Yeah. The longer you live and do things, it's the more experiences you have in your body, and then it matured your system, and then it gives you knowledge. This is how we actually learn from our ancestors. And we always talk about people in my tribe, we have tendency to actually reverence a lot those who came before us because of the nature of their wisdom. They came before us, they have wisdom, and therefore I go to them with reverence and receive their advice and receive their guidance. And for me, then at this age, I'm 64. Even you say 65, at 64, say, oh, we're close the age here. I'm 64. And I'm beginning to feel like, an ancestor where I can really I give a lot of advice to a lot of younger people, a lot of people. And where did you get your wisdom? I also got it from my ancestors.
Mm.
And that's where I learned and I matured. And the experiences of life help us to mature. What I was when I was 20 years or 25, it was just kind of young people who just running around. But as I continue having the experiences, life teaches me. Yeah, whether in a difficulties way or in an easy way, but we learn from that. So the same thing as the healing processes. It's like that we mature through those process of healing and healing ourselves and healing others.
And that's really important to remember too, that we do need to take the time to heal self. Uh,
Yes.
if that's really critical because we can't really help anyone else if we don't take care of self. Where can we go to get this book? I know it's probably available on Amazon, but what about your website? Do you have one, and what is that we can send people to?
I have a website. I haven't had much time to write a lot on it. I have a website and I explain, and I have my book there and this book that I have written also to help people learn how to heal themselves. In this book, actually, it's my book, right? I do have, like, how do you call that? I call them steps for healing,
Mhm.
yeah. And therefore in every chapter there is a practical step for healing. So if I invite people to read this because you will get so much out of it, and especially just want to heal yourself,
Right.
you will find that way. And my website also, it's trauma healing well. No, sorry, healingtraumawell.com. Yeah, you will find there also things I have put on my website. And then I teach everywhere. I teach all over the world. But I teach by the invitation. Like I go to India, I go to Cairo, I go to China, I go to many countries just to teach because they invite me to bring these methods of healing trauma.
All right, so I'm going to mention that one more time here, and we'll mention it several times actually. We'll be linked to that website as well, so people can find out more about the work that you are doing, as well as get a copy of the book. And I'm wondering if the book is sufficient, or would you encourage people? Can they maybe get in touch with you through your website and connect with you for any concerns that they might have?
Yes, yes, they can actually connect my website. And then also I have maybe I will have to send you I had a link tree. I have a link tree which has all means of how people can connect with me. Yeah, and I think in my website it's there too, the link tree. Yeah.
I think you are correct. Make peace with your past and
Yeah.
live fully your present moments. As a
Yes.
wonderful slogan there. And I'm at the website right now. We encourage you to go there as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story.
Right.
I'm
Yes.
Richard Dugan, and we're talking with Efu Nyaki. I always like to, number one, I always want to make sure I get the name pronounced correctly. I find it when I'm listening to other interviews, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect on this, but when I hear people mispronounce the name of the guest over and over and over again, it's like, you need to learn how to practice that name before you get started. One of the most difficult that I had, Efu, was a swami, an Indian swami with an order here in Montecito, California, and I practiced this for 15 minutes before I went into the monastery. His name was Swami Vidyadishananda.
Wow, Vidyadishananda. Wow, it's a long name. But you got it.
But
You're good. You're good.
but I want to ask, because normally, pretty much, names have meanings. Can you tell us, Efu, what is the origin and or what's the meaning of the name?
Okay, so my name Efu is just a short name because my full name is, as you see it here in the computer, is Euphrasia. But it is so long that, again, sometimes people mispronounce it. So then Afu is a very nickname that people call me at home. And so I introduce it to people, and it's short and sweet. So it's not, yeah, not hard for anybody to pronounce, so it is okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. But Euphrasia means the flower that heals your eyes.
Ah.
Yeah, flowers that heals your eyes. Euphrasia. Yeah.
And I think I get the meaning there. And it's not talking about the literal physical eye. What
Yeah.
you want to do is open people's eyes to the power they already possess to heal themselves.
Yes, yes, yes. That's what I guide people. My method of healing always, like I said, I don't heal people, but I hold the space for them to heal. This is what we always talk about. Yeah. Hold the space for people to heal themselves.
We refer to people such as that, as here in the States, in some instances, as facilitators,
Yes.
there to support and so forth.
Right.
So I hope that people will take that into consideration as well. Well, we are here on Tell Me Your Story, and we are talking with a very beautiful woman who has a wonderful, beautiful book that you're going to want to get a copy of. And I'm going to give you that website again, so that, and by the way, Efu, we will be linked to that website on the podcast and videocast, so people can click on it and go to your website, order the book, and it is healingtraumawell.com, healingtraumawell.com. How has your I guess, would I be correct in the conclusion, if you will, that you are considered now, and if you were actually living in Tanzania today, there on the slopes of Kilimanjaro, which I think is pretty cool, one of the elders today. You would be one of the wise ones, the healer. I know that in some there's a particular culture where it's pictured as an old woman with white hair or gray hair living in a small little structure, and they call her they might refer to her as the hag, but she's actually the wise woman. She's the healer and so forth. But I'm curious, is that sort of how you are now approached? You didn't ask for it, but because of what you are sharing with people,
Yeah.
people see you. They're in Tanzania.
Yeah, yeah. When I go home, they all of the younger ones, they see me that way. But not only in Tanzania, here in Brazil, actually, they everywhere I go, they'll really say, "Well, we want to be in your energy. We feel like your energy is such a healing energy. I just want to be close to you." Today, I attended this young woman, and as she can, after 10 minutes, she said, when I entered in this room. I was so nervous. I was feeling so terrible, so negative. And I was just thinking of dying, a negative thing. But I entered here in your presence. It feels like everything changed. She said,
Mhm.
"Wow, what did you do to me?" It's nothing. It's just I'm just sitting there. And so it's the energy. We cultivate this energy where your presence, it can be healing on itself. So that young woman that I don't know, she came for the first time. She already expressed that I'm sitting in the wisdom of this elder woman who actually healed me just by being present there. Of course, we talked and I gave her some advice and I helped her to release all that tension that she was carrying, by being there with her. But she referred to that, the wise woman, older woman, who actually just in her presence, I was healed. That's all she said as she was going out.
I want to ask you if you saw while you lived in Tanzania. I know you saw it in the States because I've seen it, but I don't know if you see it in Brazil.
Mm.
You know those older folks who are sort of hunched over like a question mark? My
Uh-huh.
father, who passed away at the age of 91, was kind of heading in that direction. And whenever I see people like that, the question that comes to my mind is, what are you what burden are you still carrying?
Mhm.
That if you just let it go, who knows, maybe you just might straighten up and because my wife, I'm 65, well, I'll be 65 in June, I should say. She sees me every once in a while when I'm walking across the floor in the house, and she will just remind me, "Richard, stand up straight when you walk." I said, I'm not. She says, "Well, you're kind of leaning forward, and I know that's because you're moving quickly through the house, but try to, sit up straight, stand up straight." Do you see a lot of that in Brazil, or did you see a lot of that in Tanzania where the elders were hunched over?
Well, it depends. We see that a lot, especially when people have gone through traumas.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're carrying that trauma. They're carrying those. It could even also be from the ancestors. Like I attended another person who her family had a lot of sickness, had a lot of sadness, had a lot of cases. The father died early into accident. So then she somehow decided to carry the whole family. She really looks to hunch down. She's very young, actually. She's only 55, but she's already hunched down like that. So she's carrying it. That is part of the trauma that we are helping people to heal. And once we help them heal the trauma, we help them hold that space, they can heal the trauma. Actually, you can see their body straightening up like that. They begin to feel that victory, that my goodness, I can live life now. I can be me, you know? Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that really is.
yeah.
It's possible
So
for
it's trauma. Yeah,
yeah,
that really hunched down so much, so badly. It is trauma.
yeah,
Otherwise, they are elderly people that you can see them very straight, you
mhm,
know?
yeah.
They're very straight, that they have lots of dignity in their system. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
find that how can I put this? That the less modernized uh, cultures around the world are they aren't necessarily less traumatized because we're human and we experience that. But do you think that maybe there's less stress in some of these other cultures that are less modern? Maybe they don't even have the internet for all I know. I'd like to get rid of mine. Thank you very much. Uh, but it's sort of a necessity in the world that I live. What is your observations in that regard? If have you traveled a lot into to other parts of the world where, you still see people suffering from trauma and stress and so forth, but it's not the modern conveniences that are causing the stress.
Yeah, it's going to depend. There's some communities of the indigenous people where everything is done commonly, in everybody come together and they heal one another by their dancing, by their music, by their how they do things. Yeah, there's less trauma. And actually, even the word, for example, the word depression, they cannot find anybody depressed. Like the Maasai people of Tanzania, for example, they live bush still. There's no depression. They don't get sick easily, So there's no trauma in such a community that is so far away from the modern life. I mean, I would say in my community where I come from now, when I go home to visit, I can begin to see that they are adapting so much life. You have a lot of tourists coming in, you have a lot of modern world. So yeah, they're adapting that, and that changes so much the community. But when I go to these tribes that are still very far away from the city, I see that there's no stress, there's no depression, there's no fibromyalgia, for example. You don't see those kind of stressful disease that we are seeing all over the place. Yeah. So it's still for me the tribal people in the natural world, in the nature people, they still maintain a very good health. And we have to learn from them. Because they're close to the nature, they're close to one another, they take care of one another, and they don't overdo it. Like keep on running without noticing that limit of that this is time to rest. Yeah.
What's interesting too, as you bring this up, of course, here in the States right now, we are experiencing what is referred to as the annual influenza. Now, at the age of 15, I knew that there was a solution for this, and it wasn't getting the flu shot. I suggested to no one in particular as a 15-year-old, shut down the airlines for 2 weeks. Stop people from going to work sick.
Yeah.
And you will wipe it out in a few days.
Exactly.
Now, after what we went through in 2020, 21, and 22 with the pandemic across the globe, 2 weeks is nothing. People still, matter of fact, I was in the store just today, and not far from me was a gentleman. I don't know if he had the flu, but he was coughing as though it sounded like he had some respiratory distress. Now, it may have been he had asthma, but I got as far away from him as I could. He was with other people. I got away from him as far, and then, of course, people ask me, he says, Richard, how is it that you stay so healthy? I says, well, because I haven't had the flu in decades. I did get COVID, but it was nothing severe. I was more frustrated over the fact I couldn't go anywhere until I got a positive or a negative result. And I tell them, I said, it's because I do what I love doing. It brings me joy. It brings me happiness. It brings me peace. Do you feel that maybe that's one of the contributing factors to getting through to that space where you can, as you phrase it, a trauma survivor, where you can reach that place of peace and happiness and joy?
Yes, that is true. Just like becoming aware of yourself. We use a lot of, like in somatic experiencing, we use one phrase that is very important. It's like felt sense, like knowing how to feel yourself and know what you're feeling inside and outside you. So that felt sense, like when you said, I know what I want, I do what I like to do. So your felt sense is very good. Yeah. And that is what helps. So we are teaching people on that, especially people who are not near that yet. Have your own felt sense. How are you feeling? And when you do this, how do you feel? And when you look like that, how do you feel? So that they know what make you feel well and what and what does the opposite. So you can avoid what is not healthy for you.
I got it. At first, I didn't quite understand it. The felt sense, correct?
Yeah,
Felt.
correct.
I love that. I'm gonna remember that. One other thing I want to talk to you about before we wrap things up here. And first of all, ladies and gentlemen, this is one patient woman. All right. I applaud her patience and her understanding as well, because there was a bit of a delay in our connecting. And then we had a little pause here and there in the program, as you won't hear the pause, but it's there. And she's stayed with me, and I thank you so much for doing so. I am a Reiki master. My wife is as well. And in our training, we were taught that you do not control the energy you send out, whether it be to the person present with you or as an absentee healing. But that's the key right there, the word healing. And I use this example every single time I talk about this on this program. My uncle, my father's brother, was diagnosed with cancer. I don't know what kind, but all I know is we wanted to send him an absentee healing. Now, maybe, in our subconscious, we hope maybe it might heal him, get rid of the cancer. But the fact of the matter is, as a Reiki healer, that's out of my control. That's up to him as to what he does with it, right?
Right.
So I move on to the story, and I say, at my uncle's funeral, my mother shared with my wife and I, my present wife and I, the story of what happened shortly after we sent this absentee healing. He got very angry and he threw his medications across the room, got into his wheelchair, wheeled across the compound. He and his family lived on a ranch, to his son's house, where he and his son, I guess, had a time of closure. And then he passed. So that raises the question for me, and I ask this of healers that we have on the program: what's the definition of healing? And I'll add one other thing. My wife's nephew had leukemia, and he passed just before Christmas 2024. And what struck me, I intuited this. You hear the phrase when someone has cancer and then they die. They lost their battle. And I got this intuition, this intuitive message that says he didn't lose the battle. He can't lose, because if it goes into remission and goes away, he wins. But if he leaves the body, he still wins because he's free of the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes a whole lot of difference in how we look also at death and dying. But let's go back to the original question. How do you perceive what it is that you are asking people to do, and that is to heal from their traumas, which is a beautiful thing. I think Jesus' edict to his apostles when he said, oh, you want to do this stuff? Yeah, that's nothing. You guys are going to do greater things. Transforming of our lives, I think, is the greater thing. Talk to us about the healing process. What is it, do we want to use a different word, or do we need to change the definition of what healing is?
Yeah. So, yeah, for me, I talk about the healing, really. It's actually going beyond just touching into the disease. The healing is what we are talking about, where I am free from whatever kept me from living life. That is healing. And sometimes people can heal, can continue with the physical illness, but they don't let this physical illness hold them back from being happy.
Mm.
They're able to express their joy, they're able to express themselves, they're able to live full life apart from all the other illness or other things that they have in their system. So this is what I actually call it, healing beyond the cure.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. I'm going to remember that. I am going to remember that. Uh, not only in the future for when I am working with or associating with people who are in need of healing,
Yeah.
free of that. And disabilities are the same thing. When I was before I had my lens implant, I was legally blind. But as a young person, maybe preteen, maybe it was a little later than that, I came up with the phrase perceived limitation.
Yeah.
And I received a wonderful note from my next door neighbor, my best friend next door neighbor that I grew up with, he and his family, that, in a manner of speaking, applauded me for just being a regular kid on the block, doing everything that everybody else was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't allow the visual impairment to get in the way. I was out there playing football and kickball and chasing around the neighborhood and all of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So comforting. It was such a wonderful sentiment that he shared with me. Both of us are in our 60s now. We're both the same age, actually. So
Yeah.
it's really very interesting.
Yes.
I want to give out the website one more time, and that is healingtraumawell.com. Healingtraumawell.com. We hope that you will go there. I encourage you to do so. Get in touch with Efu, and we will continue as we continue always here on Tell Me Your Story.
Yeah.
Efu Nyaki, my guest, all the way from Brazil. I like saying it that way. And thank you so much for not only your patience, but also for the time you have given us on this program. And I look forward to, hey, you have an invitation to come to Santa Barbara and visit. We'd love to have you come here and say hello and break bread together and so forth and learn more about the work that you are doing. But I hope to have you back on this program in the not too distant future as well.
Wow, I will come, please. I love to, because you're very spontaneous, and I just love how your interviewers, you just put it in the common life the way it is, and move from one thing to another, and nothing so structured. I love it. I like it this way, very natural. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I do have 3 final questions I ask all of my guests.
Yeah.
Ask those of you, but first I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. That's 9 programs, folks, that you can tune into. But we also provide you the full interview, the podcast or videocast. Podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and we're on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope you'll subscribe and click notification. We also want to remind you that Choices, 5 Steps for Life, is now available, has been since September of 2024 on Amazon, where you can get a hard copy, a hardcover, paperback, or Kindle version. Audible is on its way. And we also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing here, you'd like to be a part of the energetic that we are creating here, we'd love to have you there. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. Just put in the email address, richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com. And one final thing. Please take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within and listen to the greatest wisdom you can ever find by listening to that still small voice. I hope that you will. With all of that, we now go to our final 3 questions. And the first of those 3 questions is, and I'm going to take a shot at this. I don't know if I should or not. Ephrasia?
Euphrasia.
Ephrasia, who is Ephrasia Nyaki?
Yeah. You're asking me,
I'm
right?
asking you, who is Ephrasia Nyaki?
Yeah. Euphrasia Nyaki is me, I'm a daughter of Joseph and Maria Nyaki that who gave me life. I'm alive. I'm strong. I have love to share with everyone in the world who is out there that needs there. I'm a healer. That is Euphrasia Nyaki.
What gets you up in the morning?
What get me up in the morning is the motivation to go and meet people and just share all this wonderful energy that I have. The energy for healing, energy for teaching, energy for laughing, energy for joking, energy for being with people, energy for hugging. That's what get me out of the bed.
Oh, no, there's some good energy right there for hugging. And finally, what was your best day?
My best day in my life is when I looked at the mirror and I saw myself and I said, hey, there's a reason for you to be here, to love and share deeply of who the divine is. And there I go with it. That was my best day when I look at the mirror and I say, yes, I see the divine. I see myself. I see those who gave me life. And off we go to share it. That was my best day when I discovered that.
Should we all discover that? And we can. And I think that by working through those traumas and getting a copy of your book, I think we could accomplish that. The book title, once again, Healing Trauma Through Family Constellations and Somatic Experiences. That may rephrase that, Ancestral Wisdom from the Snail Clan. And we hope you'll go to her website, which is healingtraumawell.com. And again, we thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for being with us, folks, here watching and listening to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to long. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.